the fourth be with you. I had to say it. Sorry, I know. I'm Mayor Chris Jensen. Welcome to another edition of Mental Health Mondays. We are in a new month. We are in phase 2 of Governor Holcomb's reopening plan that he has laid out. I know that might have some people feeling a little hopeful. I know it will have some people feeling anxious and fearful. We're here to talk about all those things today. Once again, with me, giving her time so generously, the birthday girl yesterday, my good friend Kristen Boyce, the owner of Pathways to Healing and the wife of our city councilor, Mark Boyce. Kristen, first of all, happy birthday, and thank you again for joining.
Thank you, Mayor Jensen. I so appreciate it.
Yeah, well, we're glad to have you, and we're glad to have all the folks listening today. A few housekeeping items before we get started. If you have any questions or simply just want to say hi or simply want to share your thoughts right now, we know that people need outlets to share their thoughts right now. Feel free to type those in the comments. We love to see them. We love to read them. I have loved the vulnerability so many of our residents have been willing to share. I hope that's been one of our biggest goals. I know Kristen will agree with me, is kind of sharing our feelings. I'm willing to get down and share my thoughts, talk about my feelings a little bit, because I think it's so important. So if you want to share those, type them in. If you just want to say hi, type that in. If you have some questions, certainly type that in over in the sidebar. We'll try to get to them over the next several minutes as we conquer this Mental Health Monday on a beautiful Monday in the city of Noblesville. So let's get started in the way that I know my friend Kristen's going to get us started with. Kristen, number one tip for anyone dealing with fear, anxiety, emotional disturbance, whatever it may be, what do you suggest?
Square breathing.
Yes.
So we're going to do it together. And this is something I want everybody to do every single hour. 5 breaths. Give me 5 breaths. So today we'll do quick 5 breaths where we inhale for 4, we hold for 4, and we exhale slowly out the mouth like you're cooling soup for 8. And really drop those shoulders down. This may seem silly. This may seem like, why are we doing this? It literally helps the nervous system go out of fight, flight, or freeze. And many people are functioning. And I know this is a super hard time for many people. And this helps us kind of get present, get out of the past, get out of the future, and get here and now. So let's do it together. Feet on the floor. And really press into those heels when you put your feet on the floor, just to know the ground's beneath you to support you. We're all in this together. So we're going to breathe together. So inhale for 4 through your nose. Hold. Exhale slowly out the mouth. One more. Really proud of everybody. Keep going. I know this is hard, and I'm so proud of you for sticking with me. Let's do it again. One more through the nose. I noticed your shoulders dropping, Mayor Jensen. That's the key, getting that tension out of the body. Right now, you can probably notice the tension in your body. You can feel it in your shoulders. Typically, we can feel it in our throats. We can feel it in our chest tightening. This helps us build the immunity, build up the immune system, helps calm that nervous system down. So 5 breaths, we're going to do 2 more, and I promise we won't torture you anymore. I'm proud of you guys for sticking with me. Let's do 2 quick more. One more. We got this. Just check in with your body. Notice the difference. You might feel a little lightheaded because you're not used to taking that full, deep breath. So do this throughout the day. This is something you can do anytime, anywhere, any place. I do this all the time. So if you see me in my car, you're like, oh, there's Kristen. She's doing her breathing. If you come into my house, you're like, oh, there she is doing her breathing. I do this regularly because it helps me. It's not the cure-all, end-all. It's the first step. It's the first step to get present.
Well, it's something that we take for granted. Breathing, right? Sounds so simple. Something, of course, we have to breathe. That's how we get through the day. But this deep breathing, I found, is very different. It has a whole different feeling in my body. So I know how important it must be. So thank you for walking us through that. I know I see some great city councilors who are joining us: Megan Wiles, Aaron Smith, Maggie Owens, great friends of ours. Such good leaders in their community. I'm picturing them breathing right now as they're going through their stressful jobs. So I appreciate it. Again, say hi to us. Let us know that you're listening. We really appreciate it. So Kristen, on Friday, the most anticipated press conference any governor has ever given. I know there was a lot of guidance given on Friday. I know some, like I said, some at the onset, some people were hopeful. Some people are excited to kind of have some new, at least some guidance, if you will, on where we're going to go from here. But I certainly know there's a lot of folks now that are facing some serious fear and anxiety. You know, we've been nice and cocooned in the comfort of our homes for the last 6 or 7 weeks. And now we're going to re-enter society. Some, you have to put pants on now to go to work. Some, it's different for everybody. But I know there are some folks dealing with fear and anxiety. Parents are nervous about their kids going back to daycare, starting to use sports back up. Let's talk a little bit about those two components, fear and anxiety, and how we deal with it ourselves as parents, as grandparents, but also how do we help our kids deal with it? I know I have a little, a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old. They amazingly know what coronavirus is right now. And that's mind blowing. How do we calm them and get them through these next phases of our life?
Thank you for acknowledging that people do have fear and anxiety right now. It's something we're not acknowledging. And I really want to thank you for bringing it up because it's an important piece to what's going on right now. It's essential to recognize your own fear and anxiety. And it's okay if you have it. I have so much empathy for myself and for others. We all have some element, whether it's finances, whether it's our children, whether it's jobs, whether it's the future. It doesn't matter what it is. We all have it. So we're not going to pretend like we don't have any fear or anxiety. So I thank you for acknowledging that. So that's the first piece. The second piece is anxiety lives in the body. So oftentimes that's going to be your first tell, like, oh, my stomach, I got a pit in my stomach watching the news, or I have I got tightness of breath. So we have to first acknowledge where it lives in the body. So right now, we don't know what's going to happen in the future. We're taking it day by day. We have to be present in the here and now, and we do that through the breath. The second piece of this is leading with empathy. Right now, we have a lot of fear, and fear breeds judgment. And so what happens is we get into we're trying to protect ourselves. Mm-hmm. So sometimes we think judgment, like, oh, I'm going to protect myself in that. And what we're doing is we're seeing a lot of divisiveness. But underneath that, if we look underneath the content, it's all rooted in fear. Fear in some form or fashion, fear I'm going to lose my business, fear that things aren't going to ever change, fear of the future. And so when we can acknowledge that for each other, and I can go, oh, I get it. It's so hard right now. This is hard and it is scary at times. And it's okay to have your feelings. What if we talk to people like that? What if we said, tell me more about it? Well, yeah, and I'm afraid that, I can't pay my bills. And you go, yeah, that is super scary. I get that. When we can acknowledge the fear and have empathy and compassion and grace, the fear can dissipate. And you'll notice, have you ever had someone be really empathic towards you and you notice all of a sudden your nervous system's like, that was so, you really feel more centered and heard and acknowledged. Right now, people have a longing. They're longing to belong. They're longing to be seen. They're longing to be acknowledged. They're longing to be understood. They're longing for validation. And what we can do is have empathy for ourselves, and then we can offer that up as a community. Wouldn't that be a game changer? Because fear can drive us into defense mechanisms. Judgment, right? We can shut down. We can stonewall. We can criticize. We can numb. So we can go on our devices. And when we can go, okay, I get it. We're all anxious at some level, and it's okay. Oh man, it's hard, isn't it? And then we can have a conversation and process what's underneath with some acknowledgement. This is not easy to do. I'm making it sound super easy. It's not. So that's the first piece. We have to have some compassion for ourselves and for each other. That helps tremendously with fear and anxiety. Processing it. So that's something I would encourage us as a community to do for each other, to say it is hard and it makes sense you feel that way and it's okay to let it out. It's not okay, obviously, to name call, to belittle people, to criticize other people. That's not going to help. That's going to perpetuate what we don't want. And the other thing I want to say about anxiety is often with anxiety, there comes a shame voice in our head that says we're doing it wrong. Look at them. They seem okay. Look at them. We do this comparison piece. And I want to encourage everybody. I'm seeing a theme with clients, myself included, is watching that shame voice that says, I'm not good enough. I'm doing something wrong here. I'm not important. I don't matter. Watch that shame voice. It's the same piece I would tell people is having compassion and empathy and grace. And that's really hard to do right now.
Well, I think that's a really good point, especially in the era of social media these days. We're seeing everyone's picture perfect life, right? If you go on my social media page, you see my kids who are just cute as can be, smiling on their best behavior. I'm, sucking it in so hard I could flip inside out. But in reality, it's like turmoil, right? Like that's not real at all. So let's get back to that and realize that let's have some compassion for each other. Let's have some compassion for ourselves. One topic I want to touch on, if I'm somebody who is not as fearful, for example, I have been an essential employee. I've been going to work, so I've been in this arena for a while. But how do I went yesterday. I had the opportunity to go to the Grace Care Center at Grace Church at 146th Street. They had a drive-through restocking of the pantry, and it was my first time kind of being around some other people in several weeks. And I found others were like very much keeping their distance from me, but yet I was much more comfortable. How do people maybe that aren't as fearful acknowledge within themselves that others may be, and how can I talk to myself, if you will, about how to treat others who might be more fearful?
I think that's a really interesting piece of this, because you do have people that aren't as afraid, right? They're like, it's all okay. And you're noticing, right? Even at the grocery store, people are like, did you touch that piece of fruit? You put it back down, and now there's afraid, right? And the other person's like, I'm not afraid. So I think you even acknowledging that piece, you recognizing it in yourself, that you're like, oh, I'm not that afraid. And you notice that other people were, and respecting those boundaries. So I think that's really important. So noticing as a collective that if we all respect the boundaries at this point, it helps people feel safe. So if people wear their masks, and I know there's controversy about that, and the 6 feet. If we all kind of keep within these boundaries, that helps us collectively have more empathy, because the nervous system says, I'm safe. So those that are afraid, and I think on some level, that helps people go, okay, I can tolerate this. I can handle this. And so I think recognizing some of those boundaries, honoring the boundaries, and then acknowledging that other people do have fear, and to acknowledge their fear instead of judging it. So that's where we can get into some real disconnection and controversies, when we judge other people. And I think that doesn't help create safety and calm within yourself or the other person.
Well, I'm not sure what your opinion is, but I was talking this morning. I was running through the neighborhood, and one of my concerns over these next several weeks is, as we start to go back to the new normal, or whatever tagline you want to talk about. So many people are going to have an opinion about what someone else is doing. Right. There's going to be a lot of those opinions. As a mayor, I'm going to hear a lot about what people think about what their neighbor's doing during this time. And that's part of it. And I get that. But how can we kind of process that and kind of move through that and realize that I can control what I'm doing? I can control what my individual family is doing. I can lay out those boundaries for us. We know what the governor's boundaries have been. But can you walk me through a little bit about how we should process that? And again, maybe how do we explain to our kids that, hey, Johnny down the street may not be as fearful, or whatever that may be. And it's a different circumstance per household.
And I think this is a conversation most households are having on some level, because even within the household, you can have two people that handle it, mom, dad, whoever, handle it totally differently. So this is happening across the board right now, and it is causing a lot of divide. So the first thing underneath it is acknowledging that fear often drives that piece on looking at whether other people are and aren't doing, because we're trying to stay safe. So that Maslow's hierarchy, safety is number one. And you'll see if people feel unsafe, They want to create safety. So they will want to create, control maybe what someone else is doing. And unfortunately, as we know, we have zero control, even in our own home, about what other people are doing. So the first thing we have to do is recognize our own fear. And then a defense mechanism to that would be judging what so-and-so is doing. And I have Zippo control over what so-and-so is doing. And so I have to bring it back to myself and take a deep breath and go, okay, what do I need to do for myself? And that might look different than your neighbor. That might look different than whoever, and it's okay. It's okay. If you need to stay home, you feel like you're in a compromised immune system, it's totally okay to give yourself permission to say, you know what, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to go out. I'm going to limit my exposure. That is perfectly healthy for you. And that's exactly what you need to do for yourself. So making a decision that is best for you and your family, I want everybody to give themselves a permission slip for that. Because when you choose to stay home or whatever you're going to choose to do, that's okay for you. Judgment is really underneath it, fear and shame in disguise. And so it's something we all on a collective level need to notice, how judgment impacts us and creates what we don't want in our lives.
So let's switch gears a little bit. I want to touch on a topic that I've been stewing on the last several weeks. It's a demographic that we really have not touched on, and it's millennials. It's these 20-something, early 30-somethings. Maybe they're not married, they're single, they're feeling kind of worthless right now. Hopefully there's some that are tuning in here today, and we have a lot of them in Noblesville, and quite frankly, we're working hard to attract a lot of them to Noblesville. We want folks to live here long term. And so how do we talk to that demographic who are, like I said, single, living by themselves, just feeling underutilized as human beings right now? We've touched a lot on families, on grandparents, on kids, but there is that sweet spot right there. How do we talk to those folks, maybe in a different perspective that they might have?
Ask them, what has this been like for you? I love people asking questions. Check in with them. Ask before we assume and make assumptions. Check in and see if that's correct. So ask, how are you doing? How are you feeling? We normally don't ask, how are you feeling to people. If we can do that, I think we change conversations. What my team is telling me, we work with a lot of millennials, and they're picking up hobbies and learning new things, like whatever it may be, cooking. They're taking up, building projects. Retiling bathrooms, right? Painting. They're doing a lot of project-based work, learning new skills. And I think that's exciting. I mean, there's a growth mindset there that you can't put a price tag on for all of us. A growth mindset, whether it be growing emotionally, mentally, physically, and stretching ourselves, that can give us hope, that creates fires up a different part of the brain that gets us to say, oh, I can do this. I can get through this. So having a growth mindset, and I know they teach that in school right now, which I love, the fixed mindset versus the growth mindset. And I think the millennials, when they can tap into the growth mindset, they're doing all right. They're doing okay. It's when they get into that depressive state, which most of us have got into a time or two during this quarantine, is saying, oh man, I feel sad. I feel afraid about the future. And when we can process that by someone checking in, or we can talk through it, that helps move it up and out. So start conversations with people. How are you feeling? I don't care if you're a millennial or it doesn't matter how old you are. Start the conversation of how are you feeling? See people, acknowledge people. That's what we long for. We want to belong in a community where we feel seen. We can be our authentic selves. And if we can be a community in Noblesville that cultivates that, who doesn't want to live in a community like that? Right. So that's my 2 cents. Have a conversation with millennials or whoever it is. Get to know them. What lights them on fire? What are they afraid of? Let's ask those deeper conversations, and let's have some empathy.
Yeah, we're gonna be talking about our feelings in the city of Noblesville going forward here. So I like it. So be prepared if you run into me at Noble Coffee and Tea over the next several months. I'm going to ask you how you're feeling. So be ready with the answer, and don't be like my 9-year-old and say fine. I want more details than that. So let's talk a little bit about someone just commented about support for domestic violence situations during this time. So I appreciate, Amanda, you asking that question. I get all the 911 calls that come through in the city of Noblesville. It has been humbling to pick a word over the last several weeks. The increase in domestic violence. Our police department just issued a release this morning. There was a stabbing in Noblesville yesterday. We're seeing a very huge increase in that. So what kind of support do we have for those domestic violence victims? What should we be looking for in our own situations or maybe in those around us?
Yeah, I think that's an important question. So thank you, Amanda, for asking it. It's extremely hard situation to navigate. So this is a deep question that can take some time, but in general, the first thing is seek help. So, and I know that's super hard when you're in quarantine to even get access, maybe even to a phone. If you can, I want to give the Prevail, because this is what they do. They walk people through the process of getting help, finding shelter, and breaking the cycle. And they are amazing at it. They have groups, they walk you through protective orders, and their phone number, and write it down, is 317-776-3472. Do not hesitate. They will help you, because this is such a deep and wide topic right now. The first thing is, don't do it alone. And it feels very lonely. It feels very scary to get help. And they're a safe place to go and reach out to. Also, we right now have the disaster distress hotline that I think is the helpline that's really important for people. And it's 1-800-985-5990. So if you feel like someone's, we know, verbally, mentally, physically, or sexually controlling or abusing you, please reach out for help. That would be right now the number one thing. Call 911 if you need to, because that's what we're here to do, is help you. That's my number one thing for domestic violence right now, is seek help.
Great question, and very timely. And again, we're not, just because we're starting to see some guidance going forward, that's not going to change this. A lot of people have been cooped up. I understand it. We get it. It's hard. Life is hard in general, as I've said, and we've talked about on this show. Life is hard in general at times, and add all this in, and it's really difficult. So thanks for that question, Amanda. Let's talk a little bit before we sign off here about e-learning, about parents and kids. We are down to the final 3 weeks, 9 days left. I'm reminded. I know my sister-in-law, Lindsay Fox, over in Ohio, was just texting me, so I know she's watching. She's dealing with an e-learning student at home. Some top tips to get these parents through the final mile, these last 9 days. How do we communicate and motivate with our kids?
First of all, you're almost there. I want to acknowledge all you parents and the teachers and the administrators. Wow, you're pulling it off. Look, you did hard things. We think we can't do this. How are we going to get through this? We can do hard things. And that's, first of all, acknowledgement. I want to just be like, go. Now, we still have to make it we're at the home stretch. We still have to it's like the marathon where you're like, I'm done. I want to quit. I'm out of here. How do I even make it to the end? First of all, let's acknowledge the work you've done. We've got to acknowledge the work you've done. Second of all, we got to keep going. So we've got to regulate a couple of things. I know people are having tantrums. That seems to be the theme, is tantrums. So let's acknowledge how hard tantrums are. Oh my gosh. We didn't know this when we signed up as parents, that we're going to have kids at tantrum. But what's happening? So first of all, let's acknowledge how hard it is. Second of all, you know what I'm going to say, put your oxygen mask on first, regulate yourself. And I love choice theory. If you know anything about choice theory, it's giving the child, I like to give 2 choices. So we do the deep breathing. First and foremost, regulate yourself. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Do not give any advice or feedback or directive until you're calm. Period. Second thing is, now I'm going to do choices. So this is one I used to do in terms of e-learning. It's like, would you like to do your e-learning on this computer, or would you like to do it on your iPad? Which one would you like to choose? Would you like to do it in this room and create your own room, or would you like to do it at the kitchen table? Which one would you like to choose? See, we're going to do it, but I'm giving the child some enrollment into having a voice. And then we talk at dinner. I'm big into conversation at dinner. We didn't really do this typically as a family about feelings. How are you feeling about e-learning? I hate it. I don't want to do it. Whatever. And you go, yeah, I get it. This is super hard. And we're at the home stretch, and let's come up with ways that might make it better. Do you need a fiddle thing? Like, okay, for some reason I have this random monkey. Where this came from, I have no idea. But like, okay, do you need a fiddle thing while you're doing your e-learning? What do you need to help you to get through the home stretch? And then we brainstorm at that point because they're calm. They're not flipped. This is my little brain model. They're not flipped into fight, flight, or freeze. We don't learn at fight, flight, or freeze. We learn when we're calm in our prefrontal cortex. So this is very hard. Take breaks. Take breaks. Talk about a schedule, and then let's be a little bit flexible. So this is the key. And then talk about what you're feeling as a parent going through this and how hard it is. Because when we put pictures on Facebook of how great it is, we kind of shut down our vulnerability, and we're like, well, I'm having a hard time over here, but you look like you're doing it great. Talk through it with people that also are willing to be vulnerable and go, oh my gosh, me too. I barely made it through today. I'm seriously I don't even know how I'm going to get through the next 2 weeks. And you go, yeah. And then all of a sudden you'll notice your nervous system calm because you know you're not alone. You know you're not alone. There's other people going through the same thing. So be vulnerable, be real, share the hard moments so you know you're not the only one out there.
That's great. Well, kids are funny, right? Kids are tough. I mean, just this past Saturday, in the midst of my lovely wife, Julie Jensen, has turned into Bob Vila, and she's all about home improvement right now. So we were framing a window, and in the midst of that, we were having a good, solid 60-second teeth brushing standoff where my son just refused. Like, wouldn't go anywhere. He wanted to go outside, but he wasn't going to do it until he brushed his teeth. And I don't understand why. I like dental hygiene. I don't get why 9-year-olds wouldn't want to brush their teeth. 60 minutes he sat there and faced off with us. But that's what we're going through right now. Those are the challenges we're going through. That's real life. But I think that's great advice. Acknowledge the feelings. Take your deep breath. Frame that window. Brush that teeth. Get on with your day. It's going to be okay. So I love that advice. And parents, again, you're rock stars. This is Teacher Appreciation Week in the city of Noblesville, and we love our teachers, absolutely love our teachers, but I would say we love our parents too and grandparents because they're being teachers during this time as well. So we appreciate everyone here. So Krista, we got 2 minutes left here. Any last final thoughts before we sign off on another edition of Mental Health Monday?
Yeah, I wrote down a couple things that I thought were important, and I don't know if you can see them.
Yeah, love it.
Okay, so this is the awareness of our feelings. We've got to kind of be aware of my trigger, like, oh, I'm triggered, I'm reactive, or I'm afraid, or I'm anxious, and then we need to breathe, you know that. Then connect to the emotions. And that doesn't mean emotions come and go. They're like waves, okay? If we don't acknowledge them, they will stay stuck. We will stay stuck in them. So we've got to acknowledge them, breathe through it. You'll see. Now, is the breath, again, the end-all be-all? It is an essential #1 ingredient to work through depression, anxiety, trauma. It doesn't matter the issue. This is what I'm teaching people. Then self-compassion. This is hard because that shame voice comes up and tells us stories. I wrote this. The shame voice comes up, and this is my little journal. I do Post-it notes. If you ever know me, I like Post-it notes. The shame voice tells us stories about how terrible we are and what we're doing wrong and how we're worthless and nobody cares about us and we're unimportant. And what I teach is to acknowledge that shame voice, and this is how we work through it. But if you don't acknowledge the shame voice, you're going to stay stuck in a shame spiral. And you'll constantly be looking for a way out of that. You'll be drinking, you'll be on social media, you'll be shopping, gambling. I mean, the list goes on. When we can come back, take a breath, and we can acknowledge what we're feeling. We're not dependent on someone else doing it for us. We can find healing. This is where the faith comes in to really pour us in that grace. Whatever it is, and that self-compassion, that nurturing is so important right now as we're going through so much uncertainty. And that is what I hope for everybody, to be able to notice that shame voice, talk to it in the stories it tells us, and say, I got this. I'm okay. I'm okay. It's okay that I feel this way right now. That's my 2 cents for today.
I love it. Kristen, before I go, I got to ask you, how are you feeling?
I am feeling very hopeful and joyful that we've had this conversation today. Now, I don't always feel that in every moment, but that's why I want to teach, because people try to chase happiness, and happiness comes and goes just like any other emotion. But I feel really grateful for this time together, and thank you for starting such an important conversation.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you for taking time. I feel encouraged about our city and where we're going. I am encouraged and hopeful, you stole my word, about the future going forward. And I just am honored that you would take time out of your day, Kristen, to join us. Again, Kristen Boyce, owners of Pathways to Healing here in Noblesville. Thank you once again. Noblesville, you're doing it. It's great. It's a beautiful Monday morning. Get out and get some sunshine. Keep your social distance. If you can. And just thanks again for tuning in. And we'll see you back here next Monday, 11 a.m. New topics on Mental Health Mondays. But Kristen, thanks again.
Thank you.